Well, RT gets quite the starring role in the US intelligence report. Almost a third of it is dedicated to describing RT's alleged efforts to, quote, fuel discontent in the US. It goes on to accuse some former programs of being overwhelmingly critical of American and Western governments for years. Well, let's now, in fact, hear from Abby Martin, who was the host of one of the named shows breaking the sets. Abby, nice to see you again. It's been a while, though, hasn't it? Your show has not been running on RT for, 2 years now, yet it was still one of the programs singled out in the US intelligence report, as we said. You weren't shy, were you, to express your views, but is it fair to say that what you did here in RT was part of the Kremlin's effort to, quote, influence politics and what they're saying also fuel discontent?
It's incredible. You know, I've never actually gotten direction from Putin himself or coordinated with the Kremlin, but I will say, as a passionate young American at the time that RT picked me up, I was trying to present issues that affected Americans and their communities like reporters in a vibrant democracy should be able to do. So, you know, this whole report just reeks of desperation. It's a lashing out on behalf of the establishment. Like you said, a third of it is full of bashing RT. It is absolutely insane, ridiculous, embarrassing to say the least.
Following the report, the New York Times issued an article with its own analysis of RT's work, again mentioning you, saying that you quit on air after denouncing Russia's actions in Ukraine. But there was a sizable period before that.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, is that I've always been open with management. I talked to my management about what I wanted to say. I went on air, voiced my opinion, and that's what I did every day. I voiced my opinions, and I continued to voice my opinions after that. So the New York Times is no stranger to false narratives. They latched onto this report. Not only did they call it surprisingly damning and detailed, they also had to add that, of course, it contained no evidence. But the next day after they published this, you know, staunch defense of the intelligence community, like it always does, so-called paper of record, they actually followed up with a piece claiming that 2 anchors quit live on air and denounced RT as propaganda. Of course, that is completely false. They didn't even reach out to me. And I was a main part of this story to bolster this narrative in order to defend the intelligence report. So I was really, really appalled to see not only was my entire work on RT misconstrued to fit this narrative, but they hadn't even bothered to reach out to me. I mean, I'm pretty available online. So they said that I quit on air, denounced the propaganda. As we know, someone named Liz Wall, who tried to hijack what I was doing to reassert my editorial control, she actually did quit on air. And you know, when you dig into that story, it has full of holes as well. So it's pretty desperate what they were trying to do. And when I approached the guy, it was already up for 19 hours with thousands of people seeing these lies, these egregious lies about me and my reporting. And it really contradicted their entire story. The truth contradicted their story, because when I pointed out, hey, not only did I not quit on air, not only was I able to speak out, but I was able to have my job for an entire year after that, continuing to speak out. And that completely shows, hey, if this is a Kremlin mouthpiece, why was I able to have the main opinion show on primetime television on RT for an entire year after that happened?
Have you heard from the author of the article at all? Because as we understand, they made a correction to the original publication, but again, got it wrong.
Of course. I confronted him after it was up for almost a day. And mind you, there were other people telling him that this was full of egregious factual inconsistencies. He didn't care. They didn't retract or correct it at all. It was only when I put him on blast, Russell Goldman, on Twitter, that he immediately corrected it. Okay, so it was a series of corrections here happening in real time, because they were very embarrassed and desperate to try to maintain this narrative that I somehow quit over the Ukraine thing, right? So I told him, hey, that actually isn't true. I issued a statement. Their correction still misconstrued the facts. Shockingly enough, at the end of their correction, they say Abby Martin quit sometime after, right? Not mentioning that it was an entire year. So they still insinuate that I quit over this political disagreement, which couldn't be farther from the truth.
Many news outlets from all over the world, they're constantly accusing Russia of producing fake news. It's a term we've heard a lot about in the last month or so. But surely the New York Times has done exactly that in its reporting on you, and its reporting as well on Russian hackers breaking into the US electrical grid, which they then corrected 2 days later. Where is this coming from in American media in particular?
Well, the New York Times and the Washington Post, it's quite astounding. I mean, they're the so-called paper of record. They set the narrative for the Beltway. You know, they're echoed and repeated and bolstered by the establishment and so forth. But really, when you look at these two publications, they are the premier producers of quote unquote fake news, producing false narratives. And much more dangerous, let's say, than the fake news that Washington Post pointed out when they're trying to conflate all non-corporate media as somehow fake. It's much more dangerous when you look at the New York Times' history, where they had to issue a mea culpa on behalf of Judith Miller for literally selling the Iraq War several times. Also during 2003, you look at they were bolstering this ridiculous narrative about Iraq trying to issue a hacking scam. Saddam was trying to launch a hacking on during that run-up. So they were using that narrative too. The North Korea hack from Sony. All of these things are completely insane. The New York Times, look, let's be honest. It works on behalf of the establishment. It is the state propaganda that we should be worried about. And when people go to the New York Times for the truth, and when it is telling you, and when it is desperate to sell a narrative that is gaining hostility and confrontation with a nuclear state, when we should be coordinating and cooperating with Russia to combat actual threats in the world. This is an embarrassment, and people should actually go and issue an apology.
Just to get your thought on this as well, Abby, the intelligence report states that RT was critical of fracking in the US and that third-party debates were used to create some kind of influence on the issue. Now, perhaps more of a surprise is the focus on RT building up its social media platform, which the report claimed is proof that the channel is a Kremlin propaganda tool. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so you hit the most important point right there. So here's what the report details. It doesn't even really detail, RT talks about Putin, RT talks about Trump. Really what it focused on, and here's the most amazing part. It focused on fracking, Occupy Wall Street greed. It talked about how fomenting radical discontent was simply covering third parties. So basically what the report is saying, and this is amazing because it shows you what these people really think behind closed doors, and they thought that somehow publishing it would be okay, when really what it shows is that they are the most scared of real reporting. These are issues that Americans care about. These are issues that affect our lives. And when you mock environmental issues as somehow a Kremlin conspiracy, that's the level of discourse that we're at. You know, in the hacked, the DNC leaks, Hillary was scoffing at environmentalists. She was actually calling anti-fracking activists a tool of the Kremlin as well. So this is where we're at in society, where the establishment actually is so threatened by people talking about Wall Street greed that they are willing to go out on a limb and say that this is all being fomented by the Kremlin. It is a bizarre world, and I will say it is a post-truth reality that they are actually construing themselves. And let's be honest, what this is really about. This is not about Russia as some sort of threat to anyone except capitalism and U.S. hegemony and supremacy around the world. And that's why we're going to see a lot of confrontation and hostility toward Russia and China in the coming years, because they need to maintain their stranglehold. The empire needs to maintain its stranglehold over that region of the world.
Abby, thanks for coming on the show and clarifying your position. Good to see you back on screen as well with RT for the moment. Abby Martin, former host of Breaking the Set, the show on RT, which last aired 2 years ago, as Abby just clarified. Thank you very much.
Thanks.